Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And here I have a great article for you guys from Fierce Wireless. I'll leave a link to it in the description so you guys may check it out in its entirety. Lots of great info in this article. So here we are. We are approaching another quarterly earnings for all the carriers. And one carrier in particular, which is T-Mobile, is expected to retain lead in Q4 net adds, phone net adds. And that's been the case for several quarters already. Once they got that Sprint churn under control, they got their growth lead back. And it looks like they will maintain it. In fact, the second quarter of 2023, they had the best overall churn in the industry. They said there would be a bit of a back and forth between the carriers, but eventually they would put AT&T and Verizon in the rearview mirror when it comes to churn. So I fully expect and anticipate T-Mobile to continue growing. They know internally, they know the projections. They know at the current win rates where they will be by the end of this year and where they expect it to be by the end of 2025. So I don't see that being a problem for the company whatsoever. There might be some quarters where they grow a bit less. There might be some quarters where they grow a bit more, per their guidance. But what I do anticipate is them to remain and retain the lead in phone net adds for any quarter moving forward. I fully expect that when it comes to the mobile network operators. Now, could there be some MVNOs? Could there be some cable players that might outpace? It's possible. But between Verizon and AT&T and T-Mobile, I fully expect T-Mobile to remain at the in the lead when it comes to growth. And that's on everything. That's on fixed wireless access. That's phone net adds, overall net adds. I fully expect them to remain at the top. Now, what's the maybe the biggest problem that could come out of that? So some of the commentary at some of the quarterly earnings that we got from Mike Siebert to Ulf Edwardson, he's in charge of the network. Hey, we are continuing to load up your network. And it's showing in the numbers. They're loading it up. So some of the problems that could come out of this as Verizon and AT&T continue scaling their midband, when they get to these markets with the midband now, it's going to be a fresh new network with capacity that just wasn't there before. And, Verizon not really growing the consumer base much, so their speeds are going to shine right off the bat. AT&T, the same, right? AT&T is growing, but they don't have the same amount of customer as say Verizon does. So when they go online with Cband and DOD, their speeds are fast as well. And they both have owner's economics when it comes to fiber. So they're scaling that 10 gig circuit very quickly, and their speeds are coming online very, very fast. So T-Mobile, on the other hand, they don't have to worry about scaling the midband as much because they're already very mature. They have ultra capacity N41 covering 300 million pops. And that's just the points of presence. They are now also scaling it when it comes to the square mouse. They're scaling that too. So they have a very robust midband network, but as you continue loading that up, as per the commentary from Mike Siebert, the CEO of T-Mobile, as you continue to load that up, something's going to eventually give. Now, I know I get it. We discussed before, they got Auction 108. That's mostly for white spaces, so let's call that what it is. It's not like El Paso is getting another 100 megahertz of N41 with Auction 108. It's not like, some of these other bigger metro PEAs are getting 100 megahertz of N41 more. That's not the case. This is mostly for the rural, smaller white spaces, which really, like, if T-Mobile already had a substantial amount of N41 in those places, they were never going to congest to begin with. Now they're gaining more spectrum and they're going to speed up for further growth. But unless there was a market where T-Mobile was maybe at 20 megahertz of 40 megahertz or 0 megahertz of N41, it's not really going to change what's already in place. Like those markets that had almost no N41, yes, that's going to, of course, be greatly appreciated. Speeds are going to be going up. But in the markets where they had maybe 60, 80, maybe 100, now they go to 140. In those markets, they were already doing 2, 3, 400 megabits. Now they're going to do a gig, maybe more, off peak. You know what I mean? So the difference from a consumer perspective doesn't change. It's not like because now they have more speed, the consumer can do something on their phone that they weren't able to do previously. So we got to take that into consideration. Now, from a business perspective, going to a gig speed allows T-Mobile to grow more fixed wireless access, allows them to gain more wireless subs without having much of pushback on the utilization and congestion front, right? But the big metros, they're not going to benefit as much from Auction 108. So we have to look at that objectively. We have to keep that in mind. Now, the Cband and DOD, that's another story. That will help. That will help T-Mobile facilitate more capacity, gain more customers, gain more fixed wireless access where they so choose. That will help. So the DOD, Department of Defense spectrum, they have that in 175 million pops. And the C-band, the 40 megahertz, they have that covering 225 million pops. So that's a big help. Now there's still a few questions to be answered on the C-band and DoD front from T-Mobile, right? What's the scale? What is the scale going to be? How fast and quickly are they going to deploy that? Also, the device. On the device side, when are devices going to come out that can actually aggregate all of this? That's another point that T-Mobile has to answer, right? The C-band, the DoD, those are two separate channels. So that's aggregation. That's already two channels. Then all the N41, that's already four channels of just mid-band. Then PCS, AWS, low band, right? All of that, we have to know that. So those are some of the plans that T-Mobile will have to disclose publicly on how they plan to approach this and deploy this effectively. So that's just some of the negatives, right? The growth is good. They will continue to do so. You can see it in the win rates. They have very low ambitions. I would say the 20% for the rural and the 20% for the enterprise, that's still very underpenetrated and under-indexed. Keep that in mind. That is still not gaining them fair share. So they still have run rate after 20% to continue growing those addressable markets. Now, it really sounds like they're doing this quickly, right? If you look at the expected growth numbers from TD Cowen, which we discussed, they are expected to grow 860,000 phone net adds for Q4. Keep that in mind. Or even here, 850,000 Q3, 860 anticipated for Q4. I mean, they're growing very quickly. So now, right, everything is going to start to matter. All of the QCIs, if that's been implemented, the deprioritization, all of that with time is going to matter because there is so much usage on a very mature mid-band network. T-Mobile has high percentage of users on 5G devices. They have a high amounts of their sites with mid-band deployed. So all of that has to be looked at. Now we can look at the future. Okay, what is the fiber situation going to be like in 2025 and beyond? Are they going to mass scale the multi-gig backhaul, right? The 10 gig circuits. Are they going to do that? Are they going to eventually transition over to owner's economics? Are they going to full blast at full scale deploy the C-band and DoD where they own it? It was only talked about as congestion protection, but the way that T-Mobile is growing and as quickly as they are, they have to look at this. They're adding, 3 to 4 million customers every single year now. Just do the math over a 2-year period. If they grow between 3 to 4 million on an annual basis, I mean, that's 6 to 8 million customers every single year they're adding onto the network. I mean, they're on pace to surpassing Verizon as the biggest, largest wireless carrier in the United States at this pace. Just think about if they continue growing between 3 to 4 million customers every year, think about where they will be by the end of 2030. So those are just some of my thoughts going into Q4 earnings and finally getting an outlook for 2024, getting some guidance, and hopefully we get we hear some thoughts on the C-band DOD more aggressively. Hopefully we get a bit of a spike on capex, and hopefully we get some interesting tidbits on the fiber expansion. They want to do that from a leasing perspective. That's all fine and dandy with me, but they can't have surprises. The street really doesn't like surprises, so T-Mobile has to get out in front publicly, and they got to disclose what they're going to do. So I'll be looking forward to that. Just interesting altogether, in my opinion, how T-Mobile moves forward. I think they are the most interesting right now because they've already have everything scaled and matured, and they're still growing, very similar to the Un-carrier days. Verizon and AT&T, we know what we're looking forward from them, right? We're looking scale. Continue the C-band, invest in that, add it to the sites, and then at a later time we'll figure out, okay, how does Verizon continue growing? What does AT&T do now with the fiber and the home internet air? So very interesting there too. But I think T-Mobile, where they are now, how they're continuing to grow, and that the mid-band is already at scale, it's really interesting to figure out and see what they're going to do next. What's the next phase of their network? So make sure you guys stay tuned. If you are new, like, share, subscribe, follow my social media outlets. This is Tyrone with Tech Life, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.